You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 61 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. It's been another few busy weeks for me. Last week I spent my time working on guitar videos instead of the podcast, which I will get to at the end of this episode. So this week I wanted to record a new episode, but I didn't have a guest lined up, and I didn't have a solo topic that I could just do on my own. So in the spur of the moment, I set up a link and announced it at a meeting that I wanted to do a group chat recording. Again, I had no specific topic to go on. I just had some faith that something would just work out. Speaking of faith that things will go right, this weekend we have our Outer Circle Music Jam here in the Bay Area, and I haven't really prepared anything on guitar. We do have a bunch of musicians joining us, and we don't have a specific set list to play, and I have just been relying on faith that things are just going to work out. Thinking of that, I found a reading from Answers in the Heart that I wanted to share around this very topic, and this comes from August 18th, and I'm going to skip the quote here at the beginning, jumping down to the main body. Many of us have felt at times that we don't know where we're going. Maybe we've just made an important change, like leaving a job or a relationship. Perhaps we feel far away from our higher power and don't know how to find our way back. Or we might be entering a new stage of recovery, which often entails a deeper commitment to our recovery program and insecurity about the future. During the times we have no answers, it may be enough to simply ask the questions. Our inclination as sex addicts is to be in control, to put our minds to work and figure things out. But some things simply can't be dealt with only with logic. All we can do is ask the questions, have faith in the answers as our higher power reveals them to us, and let go. We find new faith by working through those situations where we don't have the right answer right away. Part of life's wonder is its mystery. It takes faith not only to accept the mystery, but to embrace and love it. And the meditation at the end, life is a question mark. Today is a day to accept and cherish that in my life. So without a topic in mind, I put faith in my higher power that things would just work out, as I got a few friends of mine from the noon Zoom room to join me in a fun conversation. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to that conversation. Here it is. I hope you enjoy it. So I have no real topic.
Hey, Rye.
Yeah, what's up?
Oh, there we go.
Are those for seeing close up? Are they cheaters?
No, they're actually prescription.
Nice.
I have prescription glasses for driving. These ones are actually my old ones, and they're dirty as shit. So I'm going to take them off because I can't see with them. But no, I actually have prescription glasses that I got so that I can drive at night.
Ah, I gotcha.
Nice.
So is it getting old, eh?
Wow. You're awake? Oh, wait, I forgot. It's like what?
12:30.
You're awake at lunchtime?
Yeah.
Okay, so where's everyone's time zone? Right now, for me, it's 9:35 p.m. here in Central Standard Time.
Brandon and I are both Pacific, and Bob.
I'm Alaska.
Bob's at 6:30.
So yeah, I'm 1 hour behind Pacific.
Anyway, I thought I'd get us started. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. A lot of these guys are here from the noon meeting, and I have been fucking busy over the past couple of weeks and have not been able to schedule any new interviews or topics or anything. And yesterday, during announcements, I thought I'd throw out the Zoom link and say, hey, if we want to have any of us come on here, we can just do kind of a fellowship hour. If we want to do a topic or anything like that, we can get around to that. But, just having a bunch of us getting on Zoom and talking. So you are free to keep your mutes off, so we can just discuss shit like usual in our after hours. So joining us, we do have past first steppers. We got 2 first steppers here that have been on previous episodes, Rye and Brandon. And Brandon is the bobblehead in a truck, Brandon L edition. Still got that on your thing. We've got Bob joining us from Alaska, and John down in Australia, where it's Tomorrowland. So welcome everyone to the podcast.
Thanks, Jason. As we were talking before you hit the record button, one of the things I would like to talk about, because it's podcast related, I had an in-person meeting today, and it's a men's only meeting, kind of like how the noon Zoom one is. And months prior, I tried to get to be more exclusive, to have women come in there, and I kind of got shot down.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how about a compromise? I mentioned the podcast. I'm like, there are some women sex addicts that are on the podcast. Let's listen to one. It went very well. It made them feel uncomfortable at times, but I think that's what sometimes is needed. Because I think, especially since, someone that has abused pornography, I have seen women as sexual objects. And I think that putting like an actual story behind a sexual object, I think makes them not a sexual object anymore. So I think they felt uncomfortable, but they
humanizes.
Yeah.
Keep going. Didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, that's fine. It was I didn't know if I can name the episode or not, but it's Megan from the UK, particular story. I thought hers was really powerful, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought that it would, especially since she was from the escort and the industry and stuff like that. And I thought that would be perfect for us. When I mean us, for my in-person group. And I really liked her story. So we did half of it today. We'll do the other half next week. We kind of split it with her telling her story, and then the next part is her recovery afterwards. So
nice. Yeah, I was kind of wondering how you were going to do that, because that was a rather long episode, and I knew that would take a bit more time. I have emailed her. I remember you mentioning that you were going to use that episode in one of your meetings, and so I emailed her and let her know that her story has been greatly appreciated. And I'm just thinking of the first steps that you 2 guys have done. That's been a real amazing gift. Those are some of our more popular episodes in terms of listens and stuff. Just briefly, we talk about this at the meeting all the time. John's first meeting, from joining us from Australia, his very first meeting was during Brandon's first step. And we had been, anytime we record a first step at the noon meeting, we let everyone know well ahead of time, hey, we're going to be recording this episode. Anyone whose voice is going to be used, just know that it's we want your permission to be able to use it for the podcast. And we shut it off at a certain point so we can get some shares. But yeah, John, he popped into the meeting. He was like, what the fuck is going on? You want to add anything there, John?
I just thought all I could see was that record button, and I was thinking, "Fuck that!" This is what's going on with this place. It's, my first time on an American meeting or in this new fellowship, and I was like, all I could see was this record button going, "Oh, what do you mean? We're getting tracked here?"
Yeah,
the aliens are here.
For me that day, I was like so stressed and so nervous that I was going to fuck up and like stutter through half of it and just do all this other shit. I'm like, God, what am I going to do? And then hearing that John's in there for his first time, and he's like, what the fuck is going on here? It's like, oh, this is okay. This just took the stress off of me and made it like 1,000 fucking times easier.
Oh, it's got a way to make an entrance. You're lucky I didn't start talking, shut it down.
yeah. There was some comments going on in the chat at the time. I remember, talking about the traditions and other things like that. And yeah, I had to calm everyone's nerves. It's like, okay, this is just a one-time thing. We've done it once with Rye and once with Brandon. And I recorded my first step many years ago to use as an episode for the podcast. And I didn't feel comfortable sharing that with the world. When I told my story on episode 3, I hit like all of the major points, but I think there were a lot more details about people in my life. And I know that my family listens to the podcast from time to time. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to make sure that those things weren't out there in the public. And so, yeah, kudos to everyone here for sharing their stories.
Well, I will say, Jason, I've told you this in private, and I can't remember if we talked about this on the podcast. On episode 3, you putting your story out there, even if it didn't get into the nitty-gritty stuff, really inspired me to say, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were my inspiration to say, I'm going to share my story with the public. So don't sell yourself short on that, because I mean, that without you sharing your story, I wouldn't have probably shared mine.
Yeah. I wanted to do as much as I could just to let others know that this is how we're going to be sharing. The first episode that I did with LJ, so that was episode 5. We were both still kind of testing the waters of how far to go. And when I had him back on episode 17, I know the details of his story. I read his book and knew that it got into some childhood sexual abuse. And I kept trying to ask him about it in episode 5, but not having enough stories out there. It was kind of hard to figure out where the boundary is, what we feel comfortable in sharing. And the more and more people that have been on the podcast sharing the details of their story really encourages others to be able to share in depth as well. And so, yeah, I wanted to go as far as I could and with the comfort level that I used in that episode. And I think in the subsequent episodes, and especially the one that I did again with you, Rye, about being a minor attracted person, the conversation that we had was awesome, but recording that intro was hard for me. I have a couple people that are close to me that listen to that, and I wanted to let them know ahead of time, hey, maybe don't listen to this episode, but they went ahead and listened, and it's just like, oh shit. So the courage that everyone else sharing their stories has given me courage to keep talking about it. And I will say that I've heard at meetings and texts over the past month or so, that those episodes were eye-opening and helped a lot of people. And they have said that, thank you for talking about it, because it's hard to talk about that stuff at a meeting, and let alone our noon meeting where we have 100 people on the meeting. So yeah, that was a really good conversation.
I just want to say, since you brought this, I was going to bring up the subject of LJ. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's got some health problems. So and I don't know if your listeners are aware of this, but if anyone who believes in prayer can say a prayer for LJ, I think that would be very much appreciated, especially since he's a man of faith. And I think that would be really appreciated if people that are listening to this or will listen to this say a little prayer for him.
Yeah. I did put it out on, I forget what episode, but I did mention that he's having some health issues mentally, and I was hoping to have him as a guest on another episode. We were late last year, we were discussing a topic for a new episode, and since he's had a lot of issues with memory and carrying short-term conversations, that it was going to be a no-go. So I definitely wanted to put that out there.
I want to touch on what Rye was just saying also. I did my first step for the podcast also on episode, I think it was 49 for the, no, wait, that's right. Some dickhead decided to make it the 49ers episode.
stuff. It's your team.
I tell you what, dude, that honestly is one of my favorite things about that episode. Rye, I'm grateful for you bringing up the fact of LJ because, you know, you two, Jason, Rye, you two inspired me to want to do it also because, you know, having that vulnerability and just the courage to get on there and be like, hey, look, this is the shit that I did. This is what I realized I had a problem with. This is why I'm here. You know, you guys had the courage to do it. And I figured I want to do that too, because your guys' stories helped me. The podcast helped me, everything else. Now, kind of back to my point of what I was just saying a second ago was I have listened, and this is going to sound really like egotistical of me, but I have gone back and listened to my episode of the podcast 40 times.
Shit.
Now, when I say that, I need to make something very, very clear. I have gone back and listened to your intro 40 plus times. I have gone in there and listened to the feedback that I got from everybody 40 times. I have gone in and listened to myself one time.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole reason I do that is because your intro makes me laugh so fucking hard. Because you and I talked about it before then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I knew how you are. I knew there was going to be something in there, you know. So I found it humorous. But one of the people that I go in there and listen to was the feedback that I got from LJ.
Mm-hmm.
Because that guy fucking means a lot to me. I mean, he didn't have to do this. And I mean, I know people can't
nice.
see over audio as to what this is, but I want the rest of you guys to see this. It's my 1 year chip. LJ sent that to me. He didn't have to do that, but he did. That guy means a lot to me. And the fact that he's going through what he's going through really fucking sucks because my grandma had the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like I said, the guy means a lot to me. But hearing the comments that he made to me after I did my first step, anytime that I've had a really rough day or I've had a hard time or just shit's not going the way that I need it to be going with my recovery, I've gone in there and I've listened to that. And the comments that he made to me come from the deepest part of his heart. And I know that, but at the same time, it fucking punches me right in the face every single time and reminds me I'm a better person than I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I can beat addiction and I don't have to live that life that I used to. So, you know, having that ability to be able to have that there for me to listen to, I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, I am glad that other people have been able to take away from what I put out there and help people realize, hey, I'm not the only one. Because that's something that we talk about also is, you know, it doesn't matter how fucked up you think your story is. I guarantee there's somebody in the rooms that has either done the same thing or has contemplated the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and this is going to sound really fucked up when I say this, but they look at you and they're like, that's it? That's all you did? Fuck, that's boring. I think you actually said that in your podcast before. But yeah, it's like we all have our own fucking kinks. We all have our own differences. None of us are the same. No human being is the same. Nobody has the same thing.
Yeah, that's right.
I got to ask John why he's buggered.
Out of circle.
We got the chat open.
Way to put me in, bro. No, it's out of circle stuff, you know.
What buggered me? I don't know. I'm trying to write something in that maybe Americans can understand because, you know, I don't quite speak your language, and I don't think you speak mine. And
oh, hey, we'll get into some of those conversations here in a minute.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Sorry.
So we've said it, not every individual is the same. Nobody in this world's ever going to be the same. We don't all have the same stories, but we all have similarities, and we all can relate to what the other one's going through.
Isn't that's one of the promises, though? No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others.
Exactly.
That's right. It's and for me, I had to to be honest with you, I had to get used to the fact that people were sharing what they share, because that's part of me was so like I was so I work with vulnerable people and all that kind of stuff all my life, and and so that was really hard to hear. But the thing for me that I got to remember that this open-mindedness, like part of the one of the key they shared another fellowship, one of the key spiritual principles is open-mindedness, willingness and honesty and all that kind of stuff. And you come in here and you hear stuff, you hear stuff like that, and it's the same disease, it's the same kind of disease. I know what it's like to be an addict, man. I know what it's like to be out of control. I know what it's like, this compulsive stuff and that, I've had it, and I went into recovery years ago and looking at that childhood stuff, we're dealing with all that kind of stuff, and I did it years ago. But what I did was I kind of went, oh, that's enough of that. I don't need to look at that anymore. And this it always comes back. It'll come back until you need to at a time or when it needs to. And come up. And what did I do? Go out and did what I did. Did beforehand. Realized I needed to look at this stuff in here. And it's a godsend, really. It's a godsend to find the rooms, and even if I need to go into another country or something like that.
Yeah. Just thinking of finding the rooms. Bob, how long have you been with us on the noon meetings?
So I've been attending the noon meeting for about a month and a half now.
Yeah.
I've been in the program for about 3 months. 3 or 4 months. Okay.
Awesome. How are you finding it?
I've been really appreciating it. I've been a daily attendee for the last 45 days or so, because it really works well with my schedule. I don't have to constantly remember what time the meeting on Tuesday versus Thursday. So it's really convenient. I really like it. It's so well populated. There's such a large diversity of people there that I think that it really offers an experience that you don't really find otherwise, as far as meetings go. And I feel like I've attended all sorts of different styles of meetings via the Zoom meetings. And there's really nothing like this one, but it's so good.
Yeah. I was going to say, one of my friends who is part of my my home group on Thursday nights in person, he's on vacation this week, and he was asking me if I knew the Zoom ID for the noon meeting, and he hasn't been on the Zoom meeting in quite a while. So it's like, oh yeah, I forget that I have some of my local friends that are on the noon meeting as well. But because we do have so many people from around the world, it's been really amazing. And occasionally, some of the guys here in the Bay Area, they jump on and say, "Oh, dude, what are you doing here?" It's been really cool.
I think there used to be a Zoom meeting that was hosted locally, actually, but I haven't seen it on the SAA meeting list anymore, which is good, because at first I emailed, with the intent to attend, and I never got a response, and so I worried that it was being hosted by someone who knew me and was that I had pissed off at some point. It was very reassuring when it disappeared from the SAA meeting list to realize, oh no, it just died.
Yeah. So I've definitely heard meetings that have folded, at least post-pandemic, both the in-person meeting, and they didn't have the same infrastructure that we set up with in the Bay Area. We set up, I think, probably 8 different Zoom accounts to cover all of our meetings. And so within the first week, pretty much every meeting still had a spot to meet. But some of the other my friends around the country, their local populations didn't start up Zoom meetings. But what we're seeing now is a lot of the meetings, like the noon meeting that we're talking about. The proliferation of Zoom meetings is just amazing. That a lot of them, we never registered a bunch of these meetings with the ISO. And then now that things are kind of settling out, some meetings are back to a solid in-person meeting versus solid on Zoom or doing hybrid. That it's a whole bunch of new meetings are being created, and some old meetings are folding. So it's the dynamics of where to find meetings has definitely changed over the past couple of years.
Oh, I believe it. I can't imagine trying to go through the pandemic without online meetings, or even just for where I live, trying to find an in-person meeting pre-pandemic. I think it would have made a lot of sense for there to be a lot of, or at least a couple online meetings centered in Alaska, just because of the dispersed population.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea how many sex addicts also live in tiny villages that aren't connected by roads, which distracts most of the population centers of Alaska.
Yeah. A couple of episodes ago, we were talking about the area formation, and areas are a collection of meeting groups. And in the Bay Area, we've got well over 60 or 70 meetings. And so each area, ISO area, should have about 20 meetings at least, if not more. And certain areas of the country, like around Montana and Wisconsin and everything, there are just like one meeting here, one meeting here, one meeting there. And so those areas become huge. And I was like, how are these people going to get together for an area assembly? How are they going to communicate? And then just having the Zoom boom, it just changed everything for being able to communicate with people across the country, across the world. It's been phenomenal. So yeah, I'm grateful that places like up in Alaska, Bob, that you're able to find that. John over in Australia, I know one of my friends who was at a local meeting for years, he moved back to Sydney and started a couple meetings in Sydney, but that's a major city. And where you are, John, I know that's far away from Sydney.
Couple hours.
Yeah. So, do you have local meetings that you go to?
None here. Just in the other fellowship, other fellowship and that, like the NA and shit like that, and just the AA and that. They do have other S related fellowships, but I don't go. I don't attend them. It's a bit weird. They're a bit weird. But anyway, each to their own.
Well, I'd like to touch on that real quick. That's like me. The closest meeting I got is like an hour and 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
And that's one. Well, let me rephrase that. I guess it's more like an hour and a half, but I could either go east or I could go south. And then the closest meeting to the west is almost 3 hours. So it's not like there's a huge population around here, which I did find out that before COVID and everything, there was actually a local meeting in the town that I live in. But since the pandemic, it shut down and they haven't started back up. But, hell, I've told Jason, I've made the comment to you, I don't know how many different times, calls or texts or whatever. I want to make my one, I would like to make my first in-person meeting down at your home meeting with you, Now, granted, I went to Mexico in January and I had a one-on-one in-person meeting, with one of our members from the noon meeting, which was cool because he took me to the best freaking taco joint I've ever been to in my life. And I will say, I don't know if I've ever told you guys this story. He took me down a main street in Tijuana, and we walked through, and he goes, okay, we got to go up this way. And we turn up this little side street. I'm going, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden we turn into like, he turns and starts walking down this, like, it's almost a fucking alleyway. And I'm like, where the hell are we going? Is he going to like fucking kill me or what the hell's the deal? And all of a sudden, which I'm making jokes about it. He's cooler than shit. But all of a sudden we walk up and there's this like huge opening in the side of this building. And it's this taco joint. And it's like, what the hell is this? And then we had the food and it's like, oh my God, this is good. Well, then I found out later on when I got back to where we were staying, my wife told me, she's like, oh yeah, our shuttle driver told us about that. That's like the best rated freaking taco joint in the town. It's like, oh damn.
Nice.
But yeah, no, in-person meetings around here for me are super hard to find.
If there's not an in-person meeting up here for me, I think the nearest one would probably be a 7-hour drive.
Damn.
Holy shit.
And that is just the distance from, so I live in Fairbanks. The distance from Fairbanks to Anchorage is about a 7-hour drive.
Wow.
And that's less than half the north-south length of the state.
I was just looking at my phone because I was thinking, I wonder how many meetings are in Iowa. And I guess it's since the pandemic has gone down. In the state of Iowa, there's 3.
Holy
that I know.
for
and 2
state?
of them, yeah, and 2 of them were in my home area.
Yeah.
And unless it's not, because I typed in Iowa and it showed me 5, and there's a couple in Omaha, Nebraska, and Bellevue, Nebraska. But like, yeah, in the state of Iowa, there's only like a handful. So it's how do you make an ISO or intergroup out of 3 things, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of the areas, if you go to the ISO webpage, you can download to see what the areas look like, and a lot of the areas are multiple states. So certain areas of the country, one area will cover 3, 4, 5, 6 states, something like that. And then there are other areas. I know Texas, for example, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston, each have huge amount of meetings, like somewhere around 70 or 80 meetings. And so, they can cluster all of those. But if you look at the rest of Texas, I'm not sure how many there are. So there are little individual pockets that have their own areas, and then all of a sudden it's just this vast area until you hit other meetings. So the meetings are increasing, but and especially in the digital area. So there are 4 digital areas that cover telemeetings and things. And I haven't looked at the newest one, but the way it was broken up last year, there was one area with like 30, one with 27, one with 23, and then one with 175. And the one with 175, that's where like all these new Zoom meetings have been funneling. And I think they've restructured it since then to even it out. But yeah, it's nuts.
What's interesting. To my local group, I have said, it's like, hey, if you're looking for additional, because there's only 2 meetings, and if there's like, if you need additional ones, I always recommend this meeting. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend who moved from Iowa to Arkansas who listened to the meeting, and he didn't speak or anything, but he said it was the most well-structured meeting he's ever been to. And I have another friend in the program who's going to be coaching in Minnesota someplace. And he's looking to do online meetings. I'm like, dude, this noon Zoom meeting, you would love it. It's like it's 7 days a week, same time, very structured. You'll love it. And so I'm pushing people that way because I think that's a really good meeting. Not just because it's structured, but because of how many people there are. There's no pressure to share. Like once you hit 100 people, you don't have to. We get the breakout rooms, but there's really no pressure to share when you have that many people. And I will say this, and Jason, I want you to see if you agree with me on this. So I had an old timer years ago who's been in the program for a long time. He told me that in where our local area was, He said there used to be 20 or 30 people in these meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden they disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And he always joked that they found the cure. And my theory is the fact that in the 80s and the 90s, internet pornography was either non-existent or very little. And like, in order to engage in the sex addiction, a person literally had to go to the adult bookstores, actually had to go to the prostitutes, actually had to, and doing all these things. So it was more shameful, and there's more risk of getting caught, of people seeing you that know you. Once the internet, and especially high-speed internet, hit, it was like, they don't have to go. No one has to go anywhere. You can get everything from the click of a button. And it's starting to get really scary about how advanced, like, we don't have to get in details, but pornography websites have just, what they're doing, that's becoming more and more potent, and it's really scary, when you think about it. I just hope that there's some light at the end of the tunnel there, and people that have issues, people like us can reach out. But man, it's just only going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
There's a really good book specifically about that topic. Sex Addiction in the Digital Age is the subtitle. Always Turned On. Rob Weiss, Jennifer Schneider. Very good. I recommend it.
Yeah, Rob Weiss has an awesome podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I came into the program, I didn't even have a cell phone, so I was still using my landline at that point. And when I got a cell phone, it was a dumb phone, and I didn't change to a smartphone until last year. So
was it even that long ago?
It was November. It was? Yeah, November of last year. So I haven't had it for a year yet, but it was definitely last year. And so, yeah, a number of people that are showing up in the rooms, they've had access to smartphones, since they were in grade school, and have found pornography on their phones, and just really, really quickly. So we are seeing a proliferation of younger guys in the program, which I am grateful that they're finding it as soon as they are. But yeah, the ways of acting out, back, before the internet, and even, like when we first got the internet, it was a slow dial-up modem. And so it wasn't quite what high speed is today. That is where it really, really took off for a lot of people. It was kind of the crack cocaine for me. Beforehand, I was still, definitely addicted to magazines and videos and stuff, going to adult bookstores and local mom and pops that had the porn section in the back. So I could still access things, but yeah, like you mentioned, Rye, that you actually had to go out and find it yourself. And the amount of deviant stuff wasn't readily available. It was harder to find, but now it's just boom, you can just be off on a tangent really quickly on the internet. And so we are seeing a lot more and more people just coming in. As far as like meeting retention goes, I can't say for sure. Some meetings, they start off big and they slowly move away. Some people that I know left the groups because of the shame aspect. They were having problems staying sober, and coming back to a room and announcing that you're a newcomer and stuff, just week after week, became demoralizing in and of itself. And so they stopped coming. I've had other people that are multiply addicted that stop coming to our meetings and taking care of their problem in another program, and then finding their way back to our meetings because that didn't work. And for my home meeting, which is a Thursday night meeting, pre-pandemic, we were hitting probably 35 to 60 people in person. 60 people would be when someone was doing a first step. 35, 40 was kind of the average. Post-pandemic, we're, I think, up to maybe 10 or 12. We do have a concurrent Zoom meeting that meets at the same time. So some of those people have not gone back to the in-person. They're still on Zoom. So the population got split, bifurcated into 2 meetings. But a lot of the other people that we've seen aren't showing up, and we've wondered where they've gone, and hopefully they'll be coming back soon.
I mean, one of the things that you mentioned with co-addiction, or not co-addiction, but multiple addictions. I was surprised. I didn't realize how many people struggle with multiple addictions at once. Like personally, yeah, I've also struggled with alcohol consumption before, but I actually managed to deal with that, I think, before it actually turned into an addiction. But as I began my recovery work, and especially when I started really gaining traction to me, it was out of nowhere. My therapist told me to lay off alcohol for 90 days. And, I joke that I responded, "Why would you say something so hurtful on purpose?" Later on, actually just the other day, I was reading a recovery workbook, and it specified that it's best to lay off alcohol and recreational drugs for about 90 days. I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what she said. Begrudgingly, I was like, okay, fine, maybe.
You just made the comment of "that's what she said." That opens up a lot of things to a lot of different jokes.
You couldn't just keep your mouth shut, Brandon. Everyone knew it, but no one was going to say anything, and then you had to open your mouth and say something.
Come on, Ryan. Do you expect any less out of me, of all people?
I mean, if it's a testament to the jokes that I write, it didn't even occur to me that I'd said that.
Yeah,
I couldn't. I'm the opposite. I couldn't understand how people can just be addicted to one thing. Yeah, I'm multi-skilled and talented, mate. I could go to many different fellowships when I first come into recovery, and that's what I did. I chose to stay in one, and I haven't used drugs and alcohol for a long time. But when push come to shove, and when I kind of let it in, like I let it in and just come through the back door, really, made the excuse. And before you know it, I knew what was happened in the end, in the end, I was like out of control, and it's like, oh, I need help here, kind of thing. And this is why I come here, to look at this stuff. And I still go to another fellowship, because it's, what I've always done. And it's funny, I go to this other fellowship, and I've got I got a number of years up, like a couple of decades really. And then I come in here, and it's like, ooh, I'm like a newcomer still, you have all this knowledge, but you have all this, it's hard to differentiate, practice humility and all that kind of stuff. It's taught me a valuable lesson anyway,
Yeah, you can translate a lot from other fellowships in terms of the steps and things like that. I'm really grateful for is people who have gone through the steps in other programs, and they start our program. It's easier to talk to them about higher power and other spiritual principles that we learn in the program. Because for me, this is my one and only program, and each new step was just brand new, eye-opening experience for me. And it's like never having to deal with a higher power before. I just I don't fucking get this. And when my sponsor, who'd also been in the beverage program, he said, okay, we're going to do a resentment grid. I'm just like, okay, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I have never done this before. Don't understand what you're talking about. And he had to walk me through it, 3 or 4 times. And then once it finally clicked, it started working for me. But, I had no concept. So it's always nice when people do a 4th step in another group, they get to their sex inventory, and it's like, oh shit, I need another program. But just real quickly, Bob, what you're mentioning, laying off the drugs and alcohol for 90 days. My sponsor wanted me to abstain from sex for 90 or 60 days. And my wife, and I'd been in the program for 1.5 years at that point. So my wife and I were trying to reestablish our relationship, and then all of a sudden wanted me to abstain. I think I had already, when I first entered the program, probably went through that period, but not formally with the sponsor. But I did commit to 60 days without masturbation at that point. and ended up making it to, I think, 84, 85 days. So kind of beyond what I had established as a goal, but just doing it one day at a time. There were a couple of days where it was just, fuck it, I'm ready. And it's like, okay, tell myself, not today, maybe tomorrow. And by the time tomorrow came, my head was in a completely different headspace. And it's like, okay, I can live without it. But detoxing myself off of the endorphins, the adrenaline rush, and everything like that was important for me to kind of clear up my headspace. So I can see where drugs and alcohol would also have that effect. I drink occasionally. It's been decades since I've smoked pot or done anything like that. So, drugs aren't really my thing, but the porn, the porn has always been there for me.
Yeah, Alaska is weed legal.
Yeah, California too.
Yeah, I think Alaska legalized before California. Like Alaska was very early on in terms of legalization states.
My state's got you beat.
Was Washington the first?
Washington and Colorado both
legalized
it on the same day.
Yeah.
I think Alaska was very shortly after that. Alaska and Oregon were very shortly after that.
I think it was Washington and Colorado, and then the next year it was Alaska and Oregon, and then I believe the next year after that it was like 6 or 7 other states. It's like, hey, weed's not as bad as everybody thought.
It's like when you hold the ice cube lever down and you get like 1 or 2 and then suddenly all of them.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we talk about, now for me, I've never taken a single drink of alcohol. I've never tried any recreational drugs. I never smoked a cigarette, but pornography was my comfort. And I think for me personally, it wasn't so much the climax that was the most addictive. It was the chase, finding the right video to get high to. And for me, I stayed away from alcohol and the drugs, a lot of it because my parents were both alcoholics, and they ruined that for me. I'm like, this doesn't look fun at all. The other thing was I didn't trust myself inebriated, especially with my sexual attraction to children. I didn't trust that instinct. I didn't trust how I would react to that. I probably prevented victims by staying sober from illicit substances. But man, food and sex, I went to a recovery group for people who have issues with food, and it was like they talked about sugar and being sugar free for so many days, and I'm like, I couldn't relate to them. I knew I had an issue similar to that because I do overeat, but it was just like, what calls home. Like, and for me, it's like I know SAA is my home, and there are other S programs out there, and I've heard good things about one of them and not so good things about another, and we don't have to get into that, but I definitely think SAA is definitely the cream of the crop. But that's just me. I might be biased.
Yeah, me too.
I think everybody that's in here right now will definitely agree with that statement, right?
Yeah, I found home, immediately after my first meeting. And, some people go to a couple of different S programs at the same time and find solace in that. And if it works for you, that is awesome.
If it makes you a better person, then, more power to you.
Exactly. I consider myself lucky that I found SAA first because, after I got to SAA, I've talked about with other people who've been part of other S groups and what the programs are like. And I feel like SAA really jives with me better than any of the other ones would have, especially with our definition of abstinence and the circles.
See, and I'm kind of the same way with you, Bob. I came into this and I started with SAA, and it is home for me. My wife tried doing a different program. Our sister program was COSA. Other S programs have their own sister program, whatever. Well, my wife tried the sister program of a different one,
group.
And she was doing it and she was good and everything else. And then her fucking counselor of all people, that's a whole nother story. Anyway, certain S programs work for certain people. This one works great for me. It works great for everybody that's in here right now. We have our own defining things that are different from every other S program. Now, there are certain meetings that go through SAA and COSA that are called HIR meetings. We have a friend, we all know him.
Mm-hmm.
Jason knows him personally. I love the shit out of the guy. He talks about these and he goes to them like every weekend or every other weekend. He has been on the podcast. His wife has been on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about these HR meetings all the time. They're healthy, intimate relationship. And it is a dual meeting. It can be hosted by COSA. It can be hosted by SAA, but they're great meetings, you know? So there is a program for everybody when it comes to sex addiction, no matter what. It's just where you find your niche and you can find your home and what fits you the best. And obviously for all of us that are in here, SAA fits us the best. It's not being biased. It's not being anything, you know, it's just, you will find yourself sticking to something that clicks in your mind a hell of a lot better. Before I came into the noon meeting, I was doing a call-in meeting on Sunday. I was doing a call-in meeting on Monday night. I was doing a different Zoom meeting on Tuesday night. I was doing something on Wednesday. Oh, wait, no. Tuesday and Thursdays, I was doing my very first meeting was on an app, you know, and then there was various different meetings. And it's like, son of a bitch, you know, and somebody brought up earlier about how hectic it can be to keep all those in track. And it's, oh yeah, okay, it's this day, it's at this time on, oh yeah, I got to use the app to do this, or I got to, you know, go to this or whatever. It comes back to the great thing about the noon meeting. Every day, same time, same login, same password, same everything. And fucking awesome. I love it. There's great people in it, you know. I did my first step on a Thursday because that was the original meeting that I came to in the noon Zoom room. I felt that was my home meeting was Thursday, but that's me. Kind of going all over the fucking place. I guess that's kind of the ADD in me coming out.
That's why your nickname's the bobblehead and not a truck.
No, the reason I'm the bobblehead in the truck is because of the elder.
Oh.
So yeah, no, the elder of our group, he says that I'm like the bobblehead of the group because I'm sitting in my truck and I'm doing this because my phone
bouncing around. Yeah.
That's why I changed it to bobblehead, was because I wanted to try to make him laugh the other day. And I just left it.
Yeah, we've had you know some fun with each other, especially when someone claims host. We usually don't do it in the meeting. Sometimes we do it in the
fellowship.
meeting. Most of the time, it's in fellowship that names get changed to something else. I've seen my name replicated a couple of times, so that like messed me up. I'm just like, wait. Why? No, I'm right here.
I swear I've never done that.
Yeah, sure.
I think within the first week of me showing up, there was a meeting where we had, I think, 4 or 5 guys named Bob. And so in fellowship, everyone's name was changing to Bob.
Yeah, that was funny. That the fellowship.
It was. Yeah, John, I noticed that your name stayed that way for like a week after.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was one time, you might remember this too. I changed my name to Jason. I don't remember what the hell. I was Jason alternate edition or something like that. Right? And then the next thing I see is he pipes up and says something, and he's Brandon L. Mad Scientist edition. I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck?
Yeah, you guys are ridiculous.
Yeah. That's what's been fun too, is having the fellowship hour after the meeting where we can just mess around. I mean, today we open it up
hour.
Hour. It could be 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
That's the best thing about it.
Yeah, there's just no time limits except for when we all have to fuck off and do our regular jobs. But
what's good about that is that the meeting's at 5 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah,
so meeting, it's like people are still asleep, and they get up, and I'm on the ear, and sometimes I got to mute because they can be a bit of a riot at home, but yeah, that's what's good about it.
I just want to add before because I know we're getting kind of close to wrapping this up.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share that the last time I was on here, I mentioned that I was hosting a meeting. When I started the meetings, I had it Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and I had it like on the overnight. And because that was the shift, that was what I figured that was what we needed. And that was also my time off from work, was Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Well, then my mental health took a crap, and I didn't have those days off anymore. And I had to close all the meetings eventually because my mental health couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to throw that out there because, it's stuff like that happens. And I think mental health's got to take a priority. And it wasn't fair to me to put myself through stress that I couldn't handle. And it wasn't fair to everyone else who was counting on those meetings and weren't getting them. Because I know how hard I think we all know how hard it is to go to a meeting, especially if it's like you're a newcomer or whatever, so it's like, if anyone's out there that's had to close a meeting because of, mental health or whatever, it's not something that should be bad because, there's always tomorrow, and gotta take care of you first.
Yeah. And what I find important is rotating service. I remember I was the secretary for a meeting for about a year while I was doing temporary literature person, doing this, and this, and I hit service burnout. And I said, fuck it. I'm done. If you guys want this meeting to continue, someone's got to pick up the book and read the script. Someone else is going to have to take over the literature. I'm done. I'll still pop in at this meeting, but if you guys want this to continue, you got to step up. And the meeting continues to thrive to this day, which is good. But, relying on one person, that's why a couple of my friends, they started a women's only meeting, and it was great for a little bit, but there were like 4 of them, and there's quite often 5 service positions. And so all of them were doing, they would rotate, but it would be the same people doing the same stuff over and over and over, and they get tired, and it's like, I can't do this week after week. I need some relief. And that meeting ended up folding because they didn't have enough people for rotation. So yeah, like with the noon Zoom meetings, we've got 100 people on there, and we have to do just a handful of service positions, but we've got enough people to do rotations. So if so-and-so can't make it, the meeting will still go on. I remember one meeting where we got locked out of our building. We didn't have the key. We didn't have the script. We didn't have the regular literature bag, but we had enough of us that had, someone had a big book, someone had a green book, and we could pick out all the readings, how it works, the 12 steps, the traditions, the abstinence statement. The opening, we had the opening, it was on one of the pamphlets that we had. So we were able just to do this impromptu meeting outside, sitting on hay bales. For whatever reason, the church had bales of hay out, probably for Halloween or some autumn festival type of thing. But we just sat on hay bales. I read the script that was in my head to the best of my ability from, reading it over and over. It's like, I kind of know how this goes, but usually if whoever's in charge of that meeting doesn't show, if the people want it to go on, it'll go on. And I've seen that happen over and over, and really, really grateful for other people being able to step up and do that. With smaller meetings where if you're the only one doing the service, of course, you're going to hit service burnout at some point, and someone else has to take over if that meeting is going to continue. That's some real shit, and it's the mental health.
I will add on a bright note that the meeting that I went to tonight, the in-person meeting here, there is one guy in there that has been going to this meeting for 28 years. Damn. And for like 18, 19 years of those meetings, a lot of times he was just by himself and he would just read the green book over and over and over again. He kept the meeting alive until more people started to come. Mm-hmm. And we call him the godfather of our group because, he's the guy. We wouldn't be there if it wasn't for him sticking it out. I don't think I would have had the gumption to keep doing that if I was the only one that showed up time after time after time after time again. So I've always been grateful for him in the group, and he's been there for 28 years. And if his health keeps going, he'll be there another 28 years.
Nice.
He'll be in his 90s with a walker, and he's still going to come to the meetings. So
awesome. Like you mentioned, that we are coming up on our time, so I want to give everyone a chance to say something before we end this recording. So
I had a feeling you were going to bring that up, and I was just going to throw out there. Somebody brought up earlier about being part of multiple fellowships. One of your previous episode members, good buddy of ours, love the guy to death, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
You even bring it up.
Oh, yeah.
The opening and in the meeting about how he introduces himself. Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a sex addict, drug addict, alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 different fellowships and 3 different meetings and just 3 whole different fucking worlds that the guy's dealing with. But he's also been able to come to terms with everything he's got going on and face it and be like, fuck you, I don't need you. But yeah, something else I was going to throw out earlier, like Jason, you made a comment about how your sponsor or somebody was like trying to take you over the AA way or something. And he brought you to I remember what the hell you called that thing, but you got to it and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, gritting out the resentments and the 4th step.
Yeah, that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, after hearing that and, just thinking about it, I literally have my green book and my big book both right next to my bed. There's one, right?
Yeah.
There's the other. I think a person can honestly, if you were to read both books, I think it's going to do a person a lot more, because if you look at the size of each one of these books, clearly the green book is bigger, right? Height-wise, thickness-wise. The big book's got it by just a hair. But if you look at the font size in the green book compared to the font size in the big book's got more in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard many, many people in meetings, because like in our intros, when we do our daily readings, there is our options for, the approved reading is from the SAA Green Book, the Big Book of AA, the 12 and 12, Answers in the Heart, and Voices of Recovery. Those are the 5 we use every day, right? And there are so many times that more often than not, people will read like Voices of Recovery or Answers in the Heart. Sometimes we get treated with something from the Green Book. The 12 and 12, I haven't heard a whole lot of people break into that. But the readings that stand out to me a lot of the time are the ones that come from the Big Book. And like our good buddy LJ, he has, I don't remember how it goes, but he's got page, paragraph, and line of the paragraph tattooed on his wrist.
Yeah.
And he has actually made that the reading in a couple, he's volunteered to do the reading in a couple of times. And that's been what he's read. And it sticks out like killer. Okay, I'll be done rambling now. I'll shut the fuck up and let somebody else have a turn.
Yeah. Anyone else have closing thoughts?
I was just going to say, I think it's important to identify whichever fellowship you're at, and only that, it's because it's, it's about the primary purpose and why we're here, you come here for the sex addiction, and that's the primary purpose, that's the only reason why we come here, and the same as you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and alcohol's the primary purpose, or identifies that, or a visitor or something like that, and and that's like that, and like all the other fellowships too. Some of them put an emphasis on that, like this is the only way we do it because it provides a connectedness, I guess, and I just think it's important, and with this meeting, like this fellowship, there's many different aspects of the disease, to the addiction too, and but our one primary purpose is to recover from sexual addiction. And like I said, like there's many different categories here. There's many different ways of doing things and that kind of stuff. And thank God that it's given that way, It's it's that way, Anyway, I'll stop now too. Yeah. Thanks.
Cool. Bob, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of following up with what John said. I mean, all the different meetings, if you look on the meeting list, all the different meetings have the different things that they focus on. So it really depends what kind of help you're looking for. You can find a meeting that will help you with that. I mean, you can find meetings that focus on topics. You can find meetings that focus on reading, find meetings that focus on discussions and stories. You can find, meetings that specifically focus on like specific steps. And it's been really helpful. And yeah, I think it's just such a valuable thing that some people don't even realize is that you can find that specific kind of help if you look for it just within the program. But yeah, I don't want to ramble on, so that's all that I'll say too.
Perfect. And one thing that John was saying was, we come to the rooms for sex addiction. So I was thinking of closing this up with, come to the rooms for sex addiction and stay for the fellowship. So I'm really grateful for everyone showing up here tonight, and I will see you guys at the noon meeting soon.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Have a good night. Later, man.
Many thanks to the guys for showing up and making such an awesome recording. As you can probably tell, I had a lot of fun. Anyway, this week we have not received many emails, but I did get a few messages from friends about the previous episode 60, which was on nature as a higher power, specifically around the new song from Heilung called Anawana. And as one friend put it, listening to the music and reading the positive comments on YouTube from all around the world was exactly what he needed. Thinking of music, I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that I spent time last week recording guitar videos. The first one that I did was for the second half of Heilung's song Anawana, which I had just figured out the chord progression for, and I love playing that. The second video that I recorded was a medley of Tool riffs that I used to enter into a guitar giveaway. I spent time crafting a medley of riffs from different songs that could blend nicely together. And I entered that into a Facebook group where they were giving away an Epiphone Les Paul Silverburst, which is similar to what the guitarist from Tool uses, although he uses the more expensive Gibson, the original Les Paul, and the Silverburst model. Anyway, entering that video, I actually won, and I am so grateful for that. I had been thinking about buying one of these over the past year, but never quite got that far to pull the trigger and buy it. So I'm grateful that this contest came up and that I was able to record something and enter it and actually win. And I was hoping it would be here in time for the music jam this weekend, but it looks like it'll be arriving sometime next week. So anyway, I love sharing good news at meetings or on the podcast around that. I feel just giddy with excitement around that. So anyway, again, we haven't received very many emails or comments on YouTube or anything. So if you were interested, you can check out our YouTube page, and I'll have links for that in the show notes. In addition to that, I will also have links for literature that was mentioned in this episode. I'll put that into the show notes as well. But yeah, other ways to connect with us. If you want to leave feedback for the podcast itself, you can reach us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. Or if you have any questions for me personally or want to be a guest on the podcast, you can reach me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. And that's all I have for this week. I want to try to edit all this and get this episode out as soon as I can, which will probably be on the weekend rather than the Thursday or Friday that I usually try to post. So anyway, I'm so thankful for everyone tuning in this week. And as always, keep coming back. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.